one of the biggest misconceptions and the biggest stresses that a lot of people tend to have in life is trying to figure out their purpose. And when you're growing up, at least from my perspective, growing up, I always thought like purpose equaled making the most money. Like me finding my purpose meant I'll be working in a job that I would be happy in, that I'll be making the most money. And I feel like that's how a lot of people think about it. So it's like they feel like the end goal is some extraordinary, just extravagant end result. Even though I feel like perspective is everything, right? So we're going to get back to just that whole idea of it being extravagant. And I feel like due to a lot of people having that mindset of, like trying to figure out their purpose, I feel like a lot of times people don't really like actively live life because they feel like the life that they're living is not worth living until they're living in their purpose. When people have to like rewire the way that you view the idea of purpose, right? In my opinion, I feel like over just like the last, I want to say like 2 years, I've came to the conclusion that purpose is just you existing. Purpose is you just living and living your life. You get what I'm saying? Your purpose is you actively living your life. Your purpose is you being present in the moment enough to experience what you're experiencing and continue experiencing. Like when you're not in a space of actively living and just being present in the moment, your life is just passing you by. And for some reason, a lot of people don't see that as you are just wasting life. And I don't even want to say like wasting life because it's like every moment has its, like there's a something to learn out of every moment, right? But it's like when you don't like really take advantage, I feel like, or even just being grateful for what you're actively experiencing, even if it's not the best circumstances. And the flawed part about having the logic of you don't feel like you can live life until you are living in your purpose, I feel like there's flaw in that because it's like you living, there's purpose in that. We should be grateful to be breathing, to be living, because there are people in this world who are not getting that opportunity. People who think they're going to wake up the next morning and they're not waking up. So it's like when it comes to purpose, before all this like manufactured idea of what life should be, when God put us on this earth, and I'm talking about our ancestors, right? God did not put us here for us to feel like we need to strive to beat world records, or God didn't put us here for us to basically like try to reach the highest level within a company. That is not why we are here. That is why America wants us here. That is what, like just society now, modern day society, all those things and everything in between is not what God put us on this earth for. That is what the Matrix has us here for, right? That is what we were brainwashed to feel like, to live in this society that benefits them, for you to be pushing, pushing, pushing to make the most money. But it's like, that is not how you should look at purpose. I feel like when it comes to really identifying your purpose, you will naturally fall into that. I feel like, of course, we have these nudges, right? And I think for one, like it definitely does come with having a relationship with God. And I know not everybody believe in God, but listen, I do, so I don't really know what else to say with that. But what I'm trying to say is when you have that relationship with God, but also you're just actively living every day, but you're also doing the things that you feel led to do and getting rid of things that you feel led to get rid of, but also just operating from your highest conscious. So like you're doing things that like, hey, I want to be a better version of myself. Just by you showing up every single day, you will naturally find yourself being led down a path that you probably wouldn't even have foreshadowed. And some people maybe, right? Because I feel like we sometimes have an idea of what our purpose is, and sometimes not really, right? That just takes a journey of discovery and things like that. But a lot of times, the things that you may feel the most called to, you've had that feeling before. You just don't know how you're going to get there. And sometimes some people don't know. But like I said, your purpose, first and foremost, is you just existing, you living, you being grateful for your life, you showing up, and you living basically. And by you just living, but also like I said, having that connection with God, because I feel like us being put on this earth, like one way or another, I don't feel like we're just here for ourselves. I feel like we are here to be servants to God. And I don't mean that in like a toxic relationship type of way, but I mean like God works through us, right? God works through people if you allow God to. So I just feel like when it comes to, like, say me, for example, oftentimes when you hear people talk about their purpose, it usually has something with being a servant of God. So it's like being an aid to people in need, whether it's giving information or healing people or whatever the case is, right? Because it looks differently for everyone. It's something that you do that you feel most fulfilled in. And also, I think it's so important to understand that your purpose does not just have to be one designated thing. You can have different purposes in different seasons of your life. So like I said, with me just showing up and living, I could be in a particular area where I'm like, okay, this is the current space that I'm in. How can I make things better? How can I, like, what can I add to it, right? In that moment, whatever I'm contributing, and I'm not talking about like resources or financially, it could be mental, it could be support, it could be emotions, but just me showing up in that moment, I am living in purpose, right? And then say, for example, 2 years from now, if I'm working in a school, that is me in the moment living in purpose because I am existing, but I'm doing what I felt led to do and I'm giving back. Or let's say 5 years ago when I started my business, during that 5 year period, my purpose was growing that business, but it also grew me as a person in so many different ways. But there came a point where that time, that season, it had to close, right? So now I'm living in purpose again and I'm sitting in front of a camera. So that's what I'm basically trying to say. Like, there is no pressure to put on yourself when it comes to trying to figure out what your purpose is. Just live. Like, just live in gratitude, live in appreciation, live in love, live, like, just live in purity, as pure as possible, because as humans we're not perfect, right? But just live with integrity and just exist and go about life. And you could talk to a person in the street and you could have touched that person. I don't mean physically, I mean like you guys could have had like a communication of words, and that could have done something for them in such a positive way. In that moment you were living in purpose. So like I said, stop stressing yourself out about trying to figure out what is my purpose, what is my purpose. Just actively live, just show up and be the best version of yourself. And you never know what you are fulfilling in any given moment. And when I say it's something to not stress about and hyper focus on, I literally mean if you're walking down the street and you smile at somebody, you don't know if that smile like lit that person up because they were having such a terrible day. You don't know if that person was going to go off themselves, but because you smiled at them, you gave them a sense of like light. So y'all, please don't let this matrix, please don't make man-made expectations within society of what you feel like you need to be doing in order to fulfill your purpose. Purpose is a continuous thing. Just like you're living life, your purpose, you're actively living in that as well. Of course, like once you get to a space where you really feel like, okay, like this is my lane, then of course, like go on with it, right? And I always feel like when you are in a space where you are at the right place, the right time, just you are doing what you need to be doing. One thing that I want to emphasize, when you are living in purpose, everything that is for you, I promise you, you're going to have. So you're going to have abundance, you're going to have the wealth, you're going to have the health, the prosperity, all of that. You don't have to worry about where you're going to get certain things from or how you're going to be provided for. If God wants you somewhere and you there, you're going to be provided for. Trust me, every single time. You don't have to worry about that. Just like how people will have this urge to, you know what, let me just pack my stuff and move to a different state, and they don't have a job, they don't have a car, they don't have nothing, right? They went off of faith and they were blessed in that because God is going to provide for you. So sometimes, even when things don't feel like, oh, this may not be my purpose or whatever the case is, listen, if it's on your heart and it's something that you feel led to do, follow that gut feeling, follow your intuition, be self-aware enough so that you can listen to the internal guidance that you're getting. And ultimately, that is what will lead you to purpose. I promise you.